Let me take this opportunity to welcome our ambassador, Nirupama Rao. And one,
I'd like to thank Mrs. Gayatri Prahlad and Professor Madhavan for inviting me to deliver the 29th annual Mahatma Gandhi lecture this afternoon. I know that very eminent persons like Dr. Jonas Salk in 1984 and Professor Prahlad have delivered the annual memorial lecture, and that therefore you come here with high expectations which may not be easy to measure up to. But thank you once again for this honor. And I'm also delighted to present the prestigious Mahatma Gandhi and the added scholarships to brilliant high school students from the San Diego area. I congratulate today's scholarship winners and wish them every success in the future. Since its inception in 1984, the San Diego Indian American Society has been deeply involved in community-related work, I know, advancing the cause of India-US friendship and, in particular, increasing awareness about the continued relevance for our times, and indeed for all times, of the teachings and ideals espoused by Mahatma Gandhi for the benefit of mankind. I applaud all those associated with the San Diego Indian American Society for their tireless efforts and commitment to such noble causes. It is also a privilege for me to be at the premises of the University of California at San Diego, one of the premier public universities in the United States. I also compliment the Chancellor Designate of UCSD, Professor Pradeep Khosla. I know he's headed for India today. He's an eminent scientist, scholar, and educationist who I'm sure will further consolidate the university's tradition of excellence. In fact, education, research and development, and innovation are crucial and expanding areas of cooperation between India and the United States. We've held a successful higher education summit last year, and the first bilateral higher education dialogue was held in Washington, D.C. last week, co-chaired by the Indian Minister of Human Resources Development, Mr. Kapil Sibal, and the US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. And we hope that this dialogue will help strengthen teaching and research in both US and Indian institutions through university linkages, junior faculty development, and joint research. It is our cooperation in this vital field that can provide intellectual sustenance to the idea of a strong India-US partnership. I would encourage UCSD to deepen its linkages with Indian institutions of higher education to harness the creative genius of both our peoples. I've titled my talk today, Gandhiji in a 21st Century World. I've reflected considerably over the last few days on what I should choose as the theme of my talk today. I know that the thoughts and values expressed with boundless truth and conviction by Gandhiji are well known to a vast cross-section of thinking humanity today. In the troubled world we live in, where we are constantly searching for answers to the challenges that face so many regions, the talisman of non-violent action and the passionate advocacy of inclusiveness, tolerance, cultural sensitivity, respect for diversity, and the understanding of the multiple identities that constitute each and every one of us today, all Gandhian values are precious legacies which we must constantly uphold. I know the impact that Gandhiji had on lives here in America too. In November 2010, before the Indian Parliament, President Barack Obama spoke of how he was influenced and inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. He said, and I quote, "I am mindful that I might not be standing before you today as President of the United States had it not been for Gandhi and the message he shared with and inspired America and the world," unquote. And while preparing for this speech, I have also been rereading the Reverend Martin Luther King's account of his 1 month long trip to India in early 1959, when he and his wife Coretta traveled across the length and the breadth of our country, connecting with the life, the legacy, and the message of Gandhiji. Just yesterday, I had the privilege of paying my respects to Bharat Ratna Pandit Ravi Shankarji at Encinitas. I asked Panditji about his memories of Gandhiji. Panditji, who is 92, spoke of meeting Gandhiji in Mumbai in the mid-1930s as a young boy of 14 and singing a bhajan, a religious Indian song for him. He sought a cross-pollination of minds, the freedom of democratic debate, the jousting of ideas, never to forget the connectivity that ties us with the rest of the human race. Our survival can only rest on the recognition of that connectivity, a recognition, as Edward Said once said, I quote, of the other echoes that inhabit the garden, unquote. The third point is communication. And communication, as Gandhiji willed it, has to rest on openness, transparency, and truth. It has to rest on education. It must involve the imaginative use of technology, including social media, as we saw being used by young Egyptian bloggers during the Arab Spring. We share, as humans, the fundamental urge to learn and share, communicate, and prosper. We live today in a world of internet search engines and collaborative systems of knowledge like Wikipedia. We are still in search of that perfect search engine, which, as one Google executive said, I quote, would be like the mind of God, unquote. A compelling thought which would have captured the imagination of Gandhiji. Achal Prabhala, a Bangalore-based writer, made the very meaningful observation in a piece written for the Hindu newspaper a few months ago, that Gandhiji saw productive and revolutionary potential in the sharing of knowledge generously. His first book, Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule, had on the cover of its first edition the prominent, unusual copyright legend, and I quote, "No rights reserved." Gandhiji was certainly an activist for free knowledge. Today, we often talk of a global vision for our planet. Here again, I'd like to turn to Gandhiji, who said, I quote, "Once we recognize the common parent stock from which we are sprung, we realize the basic unity of the human family and that there is no room for enmity and unhealthy competition," unquote. As we dodge the hate and the shrapnel of terrorism and violence in the world of today, we have to search for solutions away from codes of revenge and retribution, violence and conflict. When I reflect on the litany of death and destruction that has convulsed Afghanistan in the last decades, I ask myself why this should be so. The Pashtun people are traditionally identified in India with the courageous non-violence that exemplified the life and the work of Bharat Ratna, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, or Badshah Khan, or the frontier Gandhi, as he was lovingly known. Another image is of the strong, kind, and gentle Kabuliwala in the story by Rabindranath Tagore. It is often overlooked that these people produced a remarkable pacifist movement in the 20th century whose moving spirit was Abdul Ghaffar Khan. His followers had to swear against violence, retaliation, and revenge. This pacifism, as is noted in the biography The Pathan Unarmed by Mukulika Banerjee, grew out of the concept of jihad, or holy war, because non-violent, and I'm emphasizing this, non-violent resistance was martyrdom in its purest form, since putting one's life conspicuously in one's enemy's hands was itself the key act. It was this strategy that led Ghaffar Khan's followers in 1930 to shut down Peshawar for 5 days in a protest against colonial rule. When Badshah Khan died in 1988, his funeral procession stretched for miles as his body was carried from Peshawar across the border into Afghanistan, into Jalalabad, in what was termed, and I quote, a caravan of peace carrying a message of love, unquote, from Pashtuns east of the Khyber to those on the west. As Karl Mayer notes, the history of this troubled region thus, I quote, offers an extraordinary precedent for peace as well as a legacy of war, unquote. Gandhiji would naturally have chosen the precedent for peace personified in the life of Badshah Khan. And finally, there is remembrance. And standing here as I do on Californian soil, amongst so many of you from the Indian American diaspora, I cannot help but remember that next year we will mark 100 years of the launch of the Gadar movement by the Gadar Babas, a group of almost 8,000 brave and selfless overseas Indians who set forth from here to India to help the cause of freedom in our motherland. To remember them is to remember the spirit of sacrifice, the tapasya, as we would say in Sanskrit, as Gurudev Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore also called it, in which they gave up their lives selflessly, fighting the injustice of colonial rule to safeguard the future of millions of our countrymen. We must not forget them or the cause of a secular, free India for which they fought and laid down their lives. I'd like to conclude by saying that India remembers Gandhiji in myriad ways as the father of our nation, as the enabler of our freedom, as the fount of our pride in our identity as a peace-loving, non-violent country and a secular democracy, as a healer of divides, as a personification of truth, strength, faith, and courage. Our diplomacy in the world also bears the imprint of and draws inspiration from Gandhiji. He is our philosopher, our guide, the good boatman, as his grandson Raj Mohan Gandhi says, as we connect with the world, ever relevant, ever green, a 21st century leader of our times. To quote Faiz Ahmed Faiz, he lives among us, reminding us of our responsibilities as human beings on a fragile planet in what is, to use the poet Faiz's words, an ageless life. Thank you.